The series begins in Istanbul in 2018 with a girl named Fatun who is sitting and writing the story of her life, her siblings, and her family. The story starts in 1998 in the Turkish city of Ayvalık. At that time, Fatun is sitting on a tree in front of the lake, and her mother, Nasrin, comes to scold her because she is worried she might fall and get hurt. Fatun tells her mother that she will not come down from the tree until inspiration hits her, because she wants to write something new. At that moment, Sadiq, Nasrin's husband, arrives with his daughter Dalia. Dalia is upset and goes to her room, and Nasrin is surprised by her behavior. Sadiq explains that the dentist told Dalia she needs to get braces. Nasrin goes to talk to Dalia, but Dalia is upset and completely refuses to get braces because she thinks they will make her look ugly. She is even more upset with her sister Bisan, who thinks the issue is trivial and not worth getting angry about. Later, Nasrin is sitting in the kitchen with Nazahat, her sister-in-law, who tells her that she was at the market yesterday and saw Razan Korman. Razan asked about Bisan and was very impressed with her beauty and manners, taking her picture to show her son. This makes Nasrin very happy because the Korman family is prominent and wealthy. Nasrin then goes to her daughter's room to inform them that Razan Korman wants Bisan for her son Omar. Bisan is overjoyed and her sisters share in her happiness. At the same time, Razan is in Omar's room, showing him Bisan's picture, telling him that she is a beautiful and suitable girl. However, Omar is indifferent and tells her that he will only marry his girlfriend Amina, that he plans to travel to England with her. This makes Razan very upset. She tells him that this can never happen. Omar then leaves to go to his place and distance himself from his family for a while. He's surprised to find Amina arrived from England to surprise him. He is very happy because he missed her. He takes her out. They spend time together. Meanwhile, Razan is sitting with her husband Amr, complaining about their son and his love for Amina, whom she sees as a bad influence and a gold digger. She asks him to talk to Omar, make him stay away from Amina. Amar is annoyed by her attitude and tells her that she needs to stop trying to control Omar. Razan responds angrily, reminding him that all the luxury he enjoys is because of her. At this moment, Amar loses his temper and argues with her. During this time, Fatun is sitting with Bisan, talking about Omar and the luxury she will live in when she marries him. Fatun believes Omar is surely a handsome young man, that Bisan will be very happy with him. She is very excited to see her in the white dress. Then Dalia shows them a news article about the Korman family. They see Omar's picture, admiring his looks. Simultaneously, Nasrin tells Sadiq about Razan's proposal for their daughter Bisan. However, Sadiq is upset, feels that Bisan is still too young. Nasrin tells him that their daughter is grown up and ready for marriage. Sadiq leaves to sit alone, and Nasrin follows him, explaining that their daughters will eventually get married and won't stay with him forever. Sadiq is visibly affected because he loves his daughters very much and is very attached to them. The next morning, Bisan asks her mother if she has told her father about her marriage. Her mother replies that her father is emotional because he loves them and still can't grasp the idea that one day each of them will get married and leave for their own homes. She asks Bisan to take lunch to her father at work, talk to him for a while. Bisan arrives at her father's workplace with the food for lunch and discusses her marriage with him. She tells him that she will do everything he says, that the most important thing for her is his approval. As she leaves her father's place, she coincidentally meets Razan on the way. Razan offers to sit and talk with her for a while. All her conversation with Bisan is about Omar, making Bisan understand that Omar is very fond of her. At the same time, Amar is at work, talking to his son Omar, trying to convince him not to travel and to stay away from Amina. Omar gets angry and tells his father that he will never be a coward like him or live under his mother's control. Amar loses his temper and slaps Omar, but Omar continues to provoke him until Amar loses control and beats him harshly. The workers intervene to calm Amar down. Later, Omar returns home, and Amina tries to treat the wounds he got from the beating. She tells him she feels guilty because everything happened because of her. Omar reassures her that they will leave as soon as he establishes the company and the lab. He will completely cut ties with his family. Meanwhile, Fatun and Dalia are at school with their friends Danya and Osman. When Dalia leaves to go to the dentist, Dania mocks her for getting braces, which upsets Fatun. Fatun tells Danya that she doesn't like anyone mocking her sister. Danya feels hurt and leaves. Embarrassed in front of Osman, it becomes evident that Fatun and Osman like each other, and Fatun feels jealous when Osman feels bad for Danya because she got upset. At home, Nasrin finds Fateh, her brother-in-law, knocking on the door. He asks to see his daughter. Nasrin is shocked and asks him to leave, but Fateh insists that he must see his daughter. Nasrin sits with him, very upset, and tells him she can't believe he's asking about his daughter now after abandoning her. She tells him he's an unfit father, has no right to take the girl after they've considered her their own and raised her. Fateh tells her he has changed, must take his daughter to make up for lost time. At that moment, Nasreen decides to throw him out of the house. Suddenly, Dahlia arrives and is puzzled by what's happening. It's clear she doesn't know that this man is her uncle. After Fateh leaves, Dahlia brings her mother some water to drink and tries to calm her down. She asks who the man was and what he wanted, but Nasreen doesn't answer her question. She is preoccupied with thoughts of Fatun and Bisan. When she is about to leave the house, she finds that Bisan has returned. She asks Bisan and Dahlia to stay at home and not go out until she returns. She goes to Sadiq to talk to him and tell him what happened. She tells him that his brother Fateh came to the house and asked to take his daughter. Sadiq is shocked and tells her that the matter is not that simple and that he will not let him take the girl. Nasreen is scared and distraught at that moment and asks Sadiq to protect the girl because she is their daughter, not Fateh's. At this time, Fatun is with Osman and they are out together. It's clear that Osman is in love with Fatun. He knows everything about her and remembers what she likes and dislikes. When Fatun realizes she's late, she takes her bike and quickly heads home. When Razan arrives home, she is very angry because she heard from the workers about what happened between her husband Ammar and their son Omar. She argues with Ammar, asking him how he could allow himself to hit Omar and humiliate him in front of the workers. She reminds him that she is the one who made him and can also bring him down at any time. She tells him that she will deal with Omar and protect him from Amina. A while later, Omar arrives home, but he goes straight to his room to pack his clothes. Razan tries to calm him down, but Omar gets very angry with her, telling her to stay away from him and not to talk to him. He tells her that they will be unjust to Bisan if they force him to marry her because his heart belongs to someone else and he will never love anyone else. At night, Sadiq goes to the place where his brother Fateh is staying. He attacks him and confronts him, asking how he could come to his house and ask about his daughter after what he did. He reminds him of stealing the house and Nasreen's gold, and also abandoning his wife Farida when she was pregnant, causing her to die in sorrow. Now he comes asking about his daughter after ruining everyone's life. Sadiq tells him that he is dead to him and has disowned him. He must forget he has a brother and stay away from him and his daughters. Sadiq threatens that if Fateh comes near his wife or daughters again, he will erase him from the face of the earth. Fateh is frightened and promises Sadiq that he won't come near them again, then rushes to catch the train he will travel on. Meanwhile, the girls are sitting together talking. Fatun talks about Osman and his love for her. Dahlia mocks her and her love for Osman. In response, Fatun decides to mock Dahlia and her love for their classmate Adnan. Dahlia gets upset and goes to bed to sleep, while Fatun and Bisan laugh at her. Bisan then goes to her mother to help prepare dinner and asks about her father since he is late. Nasreen, feeling tense, tells her that her father had a lot of work today and will surely finish it and come home. At that moment, Sadiq arrives home and reassures Nasreen that he has resolved the issue with Fateh. Just then, the phone rings and Nasreen answers it to find Razan on the other end. Razan wants to visit them tomorrow with her husband to discuss Omar and Bisan's marriage. Nasreen becomes very nervous and agrees, while Sadiq sits there looking upset, unhappy with the idea of Bisan getting married at this time. At night, when everyone is asleep, Sadiq goes to his daughter's room. He looks at each of them while they sleep, showing his deep attachment and love for them, especially Bisan, whom he gazes at as if saying goodbye. Next morning, everyone is tense because of Razan's visit. Nasreen personally supervises everything before their arrival. When Razan and her husband Ammar arrive, Nasreen and the entire family greet them. Fatun prepares the slippers for them to wear inside, but Razan arrogantly walks in with her shoes on, stepping on the carpets. She looks around the house with arrogance and pride. Nasreen's family is bewildered by Razan's behavior, understanding that she is doing it intentionally to show her superiority. At that moment, Bisan enters. Feeling shy, Razan is impressed by her beauty and tells them that Bisan and her sisters will prepare the coffee. When Bisan and her sisters go to the kitchen, they talk to their aunt Nazahat, discussing Razan's behavior, the jewelry she is wearing. Bisan brings the coffee to serve, and Razan starts talking to Sadiq and Nasreen. She tells them that they surely know her family well, so there is no need for long talks. At this moment, Sadiq decides to embarrass her and says that he knows nothing about her or her family. Razan is annoyed and changes the subject, talking about her son Omar and her decision to find him a bride. She insists that Omar must meet Bisan first so they can decide if they like each other and avoid the mistakes of their ancestors who forced their children into marriages. She calls their ancestors backward, which angers Sadiq, tells her that their ancestors were not backward and that when children listen to their parents means they are well raised. Razan tries to keep her composure and asks Sadiq and Nasreen to let their children meet and spend time together, and if they get along, they can get engaged immediately. Meanwhile, Omar is having lunch with Amina. Amina receives a phone call that upsets her and tells Omar that the land they plan to buy for their lab has another interested buyer. They need to resolve the issue quickly before they lose the land. Omar tells her that he asked the accountant to transfer the money for the land. He realizes that his mother must have interfered. He then gives Amina a valuable and expensive gift, making her very happy. She thanks Omar, tells her that she deserves much more. When Amina goes to the bathroom, Omar takes the opportunity to call the accountant to find out why the money for the land wasn't transferred. The accountant informs him that it was on his mother Razan's orders. At night, Sadiq and Nasreen are sitting together. Sadiq is very upset about Razan's behavior and also feels that Ammar has no say and follows his wife blindly. Nasreen tries to calm him down, telling him that the most important thing is the son's character and morals. At the same time, Omar returns to his family's house and argues with his mother about stopping the accountant from giving him the money. She tells him that she won't allow him to waste their money on a fraud like Amina. Omar replies that Amina has nothing to do with any of this and that he wanted to make an investment in England. She tells him that she would be his partner if he wanted to start any project, but for her to agree, he must meet Bisan first because she is sure he will like her at first sight. Meanwhile, Bisan is sitting with her sisters and Dahlia asks her if she is happy about getting married. Bisan gets nervous and tells them that she didn't study like them and wasn't fond of education and studying. She feels that her only asset for marriage is her beauty. Beauty won't last forever. They then get up to go to their rooms to sleep. Batoon looks at Bisan with sadness, understanding that everyone really doesn't see anything special in Bisan except for her beauty. The next morning, Sadiq arrives at his job at the post office and learns from the employee Irfan that someone stole his bag and took all the letters in it. Sadiq is shocked by the news and argues with Irfan for being careless and leaving the bag unattended. He orders Irfan to search the entire place until he finds the letters. Meanwhile, Bisan and her sisters get ready to meet Omar. Dahlia tells their mother with annoyance that Bisan is their older sister and it's not appropriate for them to go as her chaperones. Their mother scolds her and tells her to do as she is told without complaint. Bisan and her sisters arrive at the place where she will meet Omar and find him sitting alone waiting for Bisan. Dahlia decides to take Fatun and leave so that Bisan can sit comfortably with Omar. Omar notices Bisan approaching and is struck by her beauty. He greets her warmly, sensing her nervousness. Understanding that this is probably the first time she is meeting a man, he compliments her, saying that his mother was right about her beauty, making Bisan very shy. He then asks her if she is there against her will because of his mother, which shocks Bisan. She asks if his mother pressured him to come and meet her. Omar gets nervous and denies it. Bisan tells him that they need to be honest with each other since this is a life they are about to start together. Some time passes and Nazahat is sitting with Nasreen, talking about the upcoming wedding of Bisan and Omar. Nazahat feels that Razan is in a hurry for the wedding, which makes her a bit anxious. Nasreen tells her that it is better for Bisan to start her home early while she is young. At that moment, the doorbell rings, and Bisan calls them, saying that Razan has come to visit. They get nervous and shocked, going to greet Razan themselves. Razan tells them that Bisan's wedding dress is ready and that she brought some things for Bisan and Omar's new home. She asks her guards to bring the items inside so Bisan can see them before they are taken to her new home. Razan enters the house to show Bisan the items herself and tells Nasreen that her daughter Bisan is very dear to her and that she will cherish and protect her. Nasreen is happy and reassured about her daughter. She tells Razan that in a few days they will go to Bisan's house to set up her dowry. Razan gets upset and tells Nasreen that they don't need to tire themselves out. The servants will handle that task. She then bids them farewell and leaves. Meanwhile, Omar is at his house with Amina, enjoying some romantic moments together. Suddenly, there is a knock at the door. When Omar opens it, he is shocked to see his mother standing there, very angry about his being with Amina in the same house. Omar asks his mother to be careful with her words about Amina. Razan reminds him that his wedding is in 3 days, yet he is still seeing this girl and staying with her. Amina is shocked because she didn't know Omar was getting married. Razan tells Amina that she has no self-respect, chasing after her son and trying to trap him, and that she left her husband for him. Amina angrily retorts that if Razan had any maternal feelings, she would have let Omar be happy with her. Razan replies that Omar chose his own interests. He agreed to marry to maintain his status because she told him that if he didn't marry the girl she chose and continued with someone like Amina, she would disown him and deprive him of his inheritance. Amina gets more upset and leaves. Omar then argues with his mother, accusing her of trying to clean up her past at his expense, telling her that she has no right to control his feelings and life because he loves Amina deeply. He tells her that she would never understand love since she never loved anyone, that he could never love a girl just because she's beautiful. Razan mocks him, saying he gave up everything and agreed to marry Bisan for his own interests, and now he is accusing her of being an evil mother. She then leaves him and walks away. At that moment, Sadiq returns home and is surprised by all the gifts in the house. He's very upset that Nasreen accepted the dowry items from Razan. Nasreen tells him that it's normal for a mother-in-law to give gifts to her son's bride for her dowry, but Sadiq tells her that they will never be able to repay these gifts. And even if they could never match the expensive and valuable items. The wedding day arrives, and Fatun and Dahlia are mesmerized by their sister's beauty in her wedding dress. When they leave the room, Sadiq enters to speak with Bisan, telling her that just because she is getting married and moving to her husband's house doesn't mean she should forget that this is her home. She can come and stay anytime she wants. Bisan is moved by her father's words and tears up. Then Omar and his family arrive with the wedding procession at Bisan's house. When Omar sees Bisan coming out of the house, he is again struck by her beauty, but also visibly sad and troubled. Bisan sits next to him in the car, and they head to the wedding hall. Everyone is ready for the marriage ceremony. Suddenly, Sadiq discovers that Fateh will be the witness for Bisan's marriage. Omar is also surprised to see that Amina is the witness for his marriage. Finally, the marriage of Bisan and Omar is officiated. Afterward, Sadiq takes Fateh aside and confronts him about what he did. Fateh tells him and Nasreen that he won't leave until he finds out which of the 3 girls is his daughter. Nasreen threatens that she won't spare him if he ruins any of the girls' lives, but Fateh is indifferent to their words. A little later, Sadiq reassures Nasreen that Fateh left with Nazehat and her husband. At that moment, Omar decides to go to Amina, but Razan stops him and orders the guards to remove Amina from the wedding. She tells Omar that if he leaves the wedding or his bride, he will never see Amina again. After the wedding, Bisan goes to her new home with Omar, feeling shy and nervous around him. Omar enters the room and asks to talk to her. He tells her that their marriage is only on paper. He will not be her husband, nor will she be his wife. He says it is impossible for her to ever be his wife, and that she should not expect them to live as husband and wife. He asks her to live together like siblings. Bisan is deeply shocked and stands there, stunned by what she hears, watching as Omar takes his suitcase and leaves the house. The next morning, Sadiq and his family are having breakfast together, missing Bisan as they have their first meal without her. Dahlia asks her parents about the witness to Bisan's marriage, making Sadiq and Nasreen very uncomfortable. Sadiq leaves the breakfast table abruptly. At that time, Bisan wakes up feeling sad and remains alone in the house, not telling anyone what happened. Days pass with her in the same state, sometimes feeling scared at night when she is alone, and at other times breaking down in tears. One morning, Razan visits Bisan, furious and extremely angry. She attacks Bisan, demanding to know where Omar is. When she discovers that Omar has left Bisan since the wedding night, she becomes even more enraged. Razan starts destroying the house and insults Bisan, blaming her for not using her body and beauty to seduce Omar. She slaps Bisan, throws her family photo on the floor, and pushes Bisan against the glass, causing her to faint. Razan is shocked by the sight of Bisan lying unconscious on the floor, but leaves her there alone. Meanwhile, Nasreen is anxious because Dahlia and Fatun have exams. She gives them some advice to help them focus. They ask if they can visit Bisan after the exam, because they miss her and want to see her. Their mother agrees, but reminds them to leave quickly since their sister is still a newlywed. At school, Fatun is sitting in the exam hall when she suddenly sees her father outside the window fighting with Fateh. She faints from fear for her father. At that moment, Dahlia finishes her exam and sees her father hitting Fateh. She tries to understand what happened, but he doesn't explain anything to her. They are both shocked when they see an ambulance arriving at the school, only to realize it's there to take Fatun. They rush to the hospital with her. At the same time, Omar arrives home and is shocked to see the house in disarray and Bisan on the floor, unable to move. He approaches her, worried, and asks if his mother did this to her. Realizing from Bisan's condition that his mother is responsible, he quickly takes her to the hospital. On the way, Omar apologizes to Bisan for what happened to her, admitting he left her and didn't know such things could happen because of him. They arrive at the same hospital where Fatun is, but Dahlia and Sadiq don't see them due to the crowd. Nasreen arrives at the hospital, very worried about Fatun. The doctor reassures her and Sadiq that their daughter is fine and allows Nasreen to see Fatun to check on her. Nasreen finds Fatun upset about failing the exam. She tries to calm and console her. Fatun asks if the man her father fought with is in the hospital, surprising Nasreen. She explains that she fainted from fear because she saw her father fighting with the same man who witnessed her sister Bisan's marriage. Nasreen is shocked and takes Sadiq aside to talk. She tells him they need to find a solution to keep Fateh away from them. Sadiq tries to calm Nasreen down. Meanwhile, Razan also arrives at the hospital. Omar confronts her about what happened, but she hushes him to avoid drawing attention. The doctor comes out and reassures them about Bisan, informing them that she reported the assault to the police due to the severity of Bisan's injuries. Razan becomes very anxious. Omar goes in to check on Bisan, who is very distressed, and asks him for a divorce. Omar tells her to postpone the topic for now. At that moment, the doctor enters and tells Omar that his wife has been assaulted and needs to tell the police who did it. Bisan insists to the doctor that she fell and no one hurt her. At that moment, Nasreen sees Razan by chance in the hospital and is surprised by her presence. She asks her if anything happened to Bisan. Razan lies and tells her that Bisan is fine and that she goes out and travels with Omar every day. She asks Nasreen not to call them and disturb them because they are still newlyweds. Nasreen then asks Razan why she is at the hospital. Razan says that a relative had an accident and she came to check on them. Just then, Nasreen sees Amina entering the hospital. Razan excuses herself and goes to confront Amina, telling her that Omar is here for his wife and if she had any self-respect, she would be ashamed to come. Amina responds defiantly, reminding her that she forced Omar to marry Bisan against his will and that she should stop trying to make her leave because Omar only loves her. She adds that she is neither easy nor weak and then walks away. Meanwhile, Osman is at the hospital to visit Fatih and sees Bisan walking through the hospital. He is shocked by her appearance. Bisan gets very nervous and scared, telling Osman that she fell and asking him not to tell her family anything. When she learns from him that her family is at the hospital because Fatun fainted during the exam, she becomes terrified for them. Osman reassures her that they are there only because Fatun fainted, promises not to tell them about her. Osman feels very sad for Bisan. Bisan then goes to look at her family from a distance, crying and breaking down because she can't go near them or talk to them. She decides to leave the hospital. When Omar goes to Bisan's room, finds her gone. Razan and the nurse arrive at the same time, and the nurse informs them that she will notify security. Razan tells Omar that they need to find Bisan before she goes to her family. Omar mocks her, saying she is afraid of her true nature being revealed to people. Bisan is walking in the street, and from exhaustion and pain, she faints. Suddenly, a homeless person catches her and helps her. It turns out to be the same homeless person who stands in front of her father's workplace. After a while, Omar finds her and argues with the homeless person to get him away from her. Goes to Bisan and tells her that she shouldn't have left the hospital. She explains that her family is at the hospital and might see her at any moment. She cannot let them see her in such a state. Omar tries to calm her down, assuring her that he will help her and be by her side. He asks her to stay where she is and wait for him while he goes to get the car to take her back to the hospital. When they arrive at the hospital, Bisan's family is leaving. She becomes very scared that they will see her. Omar hugs her to hide her. At that moment, feels how sad and hurt Bisan is and realizes that she doesn't deserve what has happened to her. They enter the hospital and the nurse administers IV fluids to Bisan. Bisan then asks Omar for his phone because she wants to talk to her mother. When Bisan calls her mother, she holds back her tears and asks about Fatun. Then she speaks with her father, who is very happy to talk to her. Fatun and Dalia also come to talk to Bisan. After the call ends, Bisan breaks down in tears and Omar stands by, looking at her with deep sadness before leaving the room to let her sleep and rest. Omar then calls Amina to check on her, but she is very upset with him and asks him to come over immediately to talk. Reluctantly, he leaves Bisan and goes to Amina. Later that night, Sadiq sits with Nasreen and talks about Bisan. He feels that she is unhappy and that they should visit her tomorrow to check on her. Nasreen tries to reassure him, saying that Bisan is just shy because she is a new bride. To ease his worries, they will visit her together tomorrow. Omar goes home and confronts his mother about what happened to Bisan. Tells her that they must get a divorce because he cannot continue to hurt Bisan. Amar walks in and angrily talks to Razan after learning about what happened to Bisan. Razan reminds him of what his mother did to her when they first got married, causing her to end up in the hospital many times, and that he didn't defend her back then. At the same time, Sadiq is having dinner with his family. Nasreen notices that Dalia is upset and asks her why. Dalia says she wants to know who the man is that keeps appearing everywhere and why their father was fighting with him near the school. Sadiq and Nasreen become anxious because they don't know what to tell their daughters. Fatun leaves the table and goes to her room, very upset. Dalia tells them that if she sees that man again, she will talk to him herself to find out who he is. Back at the hospital, Omar returns to Bisan with clothes for her as they prepare to leave the hospital. He tries to help and take care of her. Bisan asks if they can avoid going back home because she's scared that his mother might attack her again. Omar reassures her that that he will be by her side and that what happened will not happen again. He suggests they go to a restaurant for a meal before heading home. At the restaurant, Omar orders food for Bisan. Amina calls him, and when she finds out he is at the restaurant with Bisan and won't be joining her for dinner, she becomes furious. Omar explains that he cannot leave Bisan alone at home after what happened to her and tries to calm Amina down so she won't be upset with him. After that, Omar returns home with Bisan. As soon as they enter the house, Bisan breaks down, remembering what Razan did to her. Omar calms her down and takes her to the room. At that moment, Bisan asks him why he married her if he doesn't love her, because the situation she is in now is because of him. Omar remains silent, unable to respond, not knowing what to say. He decides to leave the room and let her sleep. The next morning, Omar brings a maid for Bisan to take care of her. Before leaving, he instructs the maid to call him directly if Bisan needs anything. He then goes to Amina to appease her, but she is very upset and treats him harshly. Omar asks her to calm down and try to understand him, assuring her that she is the only one in his heart, that she must trust his love for her. At that moment, Omar receives a call from the maid, informing him that Bisan has fainted again. He tells the maid he will come immediately, which makes Amina even more furious because he is leaving her again because of Bisan. She warns him that her patience has limits, that she won't tolerate this situation much longer. Omar tells her that they need to talk, sort things out when he returns in the evening. When Omar arrives home, he finds his father sitting with Bisan, gets very angry and confronts his father, but Bisan explains that his father came to apologize. Amar tries to calm Omar down, but Omar asks his father to leave. Amar leaves, and Omar talks to Bisan, asking her why she fainted again. She tells him that she keeps remembering what happened to her, and the sadness and shock cause her to faint. Omar asks if she is still feeling unwell and offers to take her to the hospital. Bisan reassures him that she is okay now and explains that he was too harsh on his father, especially since he came to apologize. Omar tells her that she is kind-hearted and pure, and it's hard for her to understand people like them. Bisan responds that she is strong because of love, has never been weak. Her words touch Omar. He bids her farewell before leaving. Shortly after, Nasreen calls Bisan to check on her. She expresses her desire to visit Bisan with her father and sisters, or have Bisan and her husband come to their house for an evening. Bisan becomes anxious, unsure of what to tell her mother. Nasreen happily talks about the wedding, Bisan's beauty, and their joy in seeing her in her wedding dress, and mentions that they are looking forward to having grandchildren. Bisan realizes that staying silent is the best solution, as she doesn't want to hurt her family or spoil their happiness. Nasreen then goes to visit Nazahat to tell her about what Fateh has been doing, following and watching the girls. She is shocked to find Fateh sitting at Nazahat's house. At night, Bisan sits alone, crying while eating by herself, reminiscing about her happy days at her family's house. A little later, Omar returns home to spend the night with her. He sits on the couch and falls asleep. Bisan brings a blanket and covers him with it. The next morning, when Bisan wakes up, the maid informs her that Omar woke up early and went out. Bisan returns to her room and looks at her bruised and scarred face with sadness. At that moment, Fatun tells her mother that Dahlia is not at home. Nasreen becomes very worried that Dahlia might have gone to her aunt's house. She rushes to call Sadiq, telling him that Dahlia might be heading to Nazahat's house, and asks him to call Nazahat quickly because she is upset with her and not talking to her. She also warns him to ensure that Dahlia doesn't meet or talk to Fateh. Irfan arrives then to inform Sadiq that he couldn't find the stolen bag. Sadiq becomes very frustrated. As he is leaving work, he sees the homeless man in the area. He approaches him and asks if he is hungry, some food. While they are eating together, Sadiq learns that the homeless man's name is Masood. Masood starts talking about his sorrows and worries. Suddenly, Masood mentions Bisan, saying that she is hurt, which surprises Sadiq greatly. Meanwhile, Bisan hears Dahlia's voice at the door and asks the maid to let her in. Bisan becomes very anxious and uses makeup to cover the bruises on her face. At the same time, Razan arrives and is very upset that Dahlia is at the house to visit Bisan. Razan treats Dahlia with arrogance and tells her that she is not allowed to come to her son's house anytime she wants. Dahlia angrily responds that this is her sister's house and she has the right to visit anytime, just as Razan does, and even has a key to the house. Razan tells her that it's her son's house, and she comes to check on the servants when he is not around. She asks Dahlia to leave, and Dahlia leaves, feeling upset and sensing that something is wrong with her sister. Afterward, Bisan finds Razan coming into her room. Razan approaches her, wanting to talk. Bisan is very scared of her. Razan tells Bisan about how her husband's family treated her when she first got married, constantly mocking her appearance and hating her so much that they once beat her, causing her to end up in the hospital. Since then, Razan decided never to be weak. She starts applying makeup on Bisan to cover her bruises, then calls the guards to bring in the dresses and shoes she bought for Bisan, telling her she needs to look beautiful and attractive to win Omar over and keep her home. Omar arrives at Amina's house, where she is very angry with him. He asks her to calm down so they can talk because she is the only one he trusts and needs to talk to. Amina tells him that she is not waiting for him and won't wait any longer since he keeps leaving her, even after promising that his marriage to Bisan would be only on paper. She informs him that she is in danger because of the debts she has due to the loan she took for their business. Omar tells her that he gave her all the money he had for the business. Amina responds that this is not real money and that if he loses everything, his family will give him more money. Omar is shocked by Amina's words and realizes that she was only interested in him for her own benefit and the business. Amina threatens that if he leaves now, he will lose her forever, but Omar ignores her and walks out. He then returns home to Bisan, finds her sitting in the room. He asks her if he can get something from the room. At that moment, he receives a call from his friend who invites him to go out that night. Omar decides to agree and asks Bisan to get ready because they will be going out with his friends. Bisan is excited and happy about this. Meanwhile, Dalia returns home and tells Fatun about what happened, that Razan is hiding something, and she is sure that Razan is keeping Bisan from seeing anyone. Fatun is shocked by what Dalia tells her. Later, Bisan wears a beautiful, elegant dress, stunning Omar with her beauty. Tells her that she looks very beautiful, which makes Bisan happy. They arrive at the place where they will be spending the evening. Omar holds Bisan's hand as they enter and introduces her to all his friends. He even decides to dance with her. After a while, Omar gets drunk from drinking too much. His friend helps him and Bisan get home so they can rest. When they get home, Omar goes to the room and falls asleep on the bed, still not fully conscious. He sees Bisan as Amina and approaches her, asking her to stay by his side and not leave him. He ends up getting intimate with Bisan, thinking she is Amina. The next morning, Omar wakes up and is horrified to find Bisan sleeping next to him. He quickly gets dressed, surprising Bisan with his behavior. Omar explains that what happened between them was unintentional because he was drunk and not in his right mind. He reminds her of their agreement after the wedding that they would remain like siblings and friends. Bisan is deeply shocked, starts crying. Omar leaves, feeling very upset about what happened. He decides to go back to Amina and embraces her, apologizing for everything and promising never to leave her again. Meanwhile, Razan is in her car, watching from a distance and getting very angry that Omar has returned to Amina. Omar sits with Amina, who surprises him by revealing that she is pregnant. Omar is thrilled by the news. At that moment, Dalia tries to call her sister Bisan. The maid tells Dalia that Bisan is not at home. Bisan overhears this and is puzzled by the maid's actions. She sees the maid unplug the phone to prevent anyone from calling Bisan, explaining that these are orders from Madame Razan. Bisan is shocked by what is happening. Razan arrives at Bisan's house, and as usual, Bisan is frightened when she sees her. Dalia is very upset about what is happening with her sister. She meets Osman by chance and tells him how distressed she is. Osman gets nervous and feels compelled to share what he knows. He tells Dalia that when he visited Fatun in the hospital, he saw Bisan there, and she was beaten and in bad shape, but she made him promise not to tell anyone he saw her. Dalia is devastated and worried about her sister. When she gets home, she is furious and can't handle her mother's scolding for being late. In her anger, she argues with her mother, accusing her of throwing their sister into hell. Nasreen and Sadiq are shocked by Dalia's words and ask her what she means. She tells them everything that happened and what Osman told her. Sadiq and Nasreen rush to Bisan's house. Dalia, still distraught, leaves the house and meets Fateh on the way. We learn that she recognized him as her uncle from old family photos. When Sadiq and Nasreen arrive at Bisan's house, they are shocked to find it completely empty. At that moment, Dalia arrives with Fateh, and she is also shocked to see that Bisan is not home. Nasreen is very upset to see Fateh with Dalia. Meanwhile, Bisan is at Razan's house. When she tries to leave, the maid stops her, telling her that these are Razan's orders. Razan arrives and tells Bisan that this is her home now, and she will live with her and Omar. Bisan sadly asks why Razan likes to control other people's lives. Razan explains that Bisan is to blame for her own situation because she hasn't been able to make Omar stay with her and seems resigned to her fate, which frustrates Razan and needs to change. Razan takes Bisan to show her the room she will share with Omar, telling her that this is a new beginning that will be better than the first. At that moment, Sadiq and his family arrive at Razan's house and enter despite the maid's attempt to stop them. Bisan hears her family's voices and wants to go to them, but Razan prevents her and intimidates her, saying it's not the right time to see them. Razan goes downstairs to greet Bisan's family, pretending everything is fine. Sadiq is extremely angry and confronts Razan with what he knows. She becomes very nervous and lies, saying that Bisan fell down the stairs. She didn't tell them at Bisan's request because she didn't want to worry them. She claims Bisan is currently traveling with Omar. Sadiq doesn't believe her and insists she calls them so he can talk to his daughter. Razan pretends to call an old number, as if it were Omar's, but no one answers. She promises them that as soon as Omar and Bisan return from their trip, she will contact them so they can see their daughter. Sadiq and his family leave, still very upset. Afterward, Razan goes up to Bisan with a small mobile phone and gives it to her so she can call her family, pretending she is traveling and reassuring them. Bisan follows Razan's instructions, and her family is relieved that she is okay and leaves the mansion. Meanwhile, Omar is with Amina, talking about her pregnancy and how happy he is about it. He's determined not to be like his father, weak and passive. At that moment, he gets a call from his mother and has to leave Amina. When he returns home, he is shocked to find it locked and Bisan missing. He assumes she has run away to her family. On his way, his mother calls him and informs him that Bisan is with her and that from now on, they will live with her in the house. Omar is stunned. When he arrives at his family home, he argues with his mother about what she did. She tells him that he and Bisan will be under her watch until they become a proper couple as she planned. Omar leaves her and goes to Bisan, asking her to get dressed because they are leaving. Bisan refuses to go with him, telling him that he ruined her life, married her without loving her, left her alone to be beaten by his mother, and when he finally treated her like a wife, he woke up regretting it. Omar asks her to forget that night because he wasn't in his right mind. Bisan cries and tells him she can't forget it because it was the best night of her life. Omar is shocked, realizing that Bisan has fallen in love with him. When Omar leaves the room, he discovers his mother was eavesdropping on them and is delighted that Omar and Bisan have been intimate. She tells him she is eagerly waiting for her grandchild. Omar is very upset with her. At that time, Fateh is at his sister Nazahat's house, talking to someone on the phone, assuring them that everything is going as planned, indicating he is plotting something. The next morning, Amar is surprised to find out that his son and daughter-in-law will be living with them and have left their own house, realizing it's another one of Razan's schemes. Meanwhile, Omar helps Bisan change her bandage. Despite the pain, Bisan feels nervous because of her love for Omar. Omar notices the way Bisan looks at him and senses her feelings towards him.